Hello again and welcome back to another episode in a year in my garden. Now I've been quite busy today and I've started to tidy up this bit of privet here, and I'm going to be shaping it into a sort of a cone. Wondered what to do with it, but that's what I'm going to do. So it comes out and then to a point at the top. I'll bring my secateurs here and tidy the back up, but generally it's coming into a nice shape. Now, you might wonder what I've been doing, but as the sap rises in the plants at this time of year, a great thing to do with your sharp tools is just to put a little bit of water onto them, and that ensures that the sap that is rising through doesn't stick your edges up. Really useful little tip there. Anyway, what have we got in line for today? Well, we're going to be putting some trellis work up in the front garden. We've got some tidying and general weeding to do. We've got some plants to repot and pot on in the greenhouse, and I've got some painting to do as well. Also, I've got a couple of little bits and pieces where people have been in touch with me that I'm going to share with you, and let's just have some great fun. So while the sun shines, let's make hay. Well, my first job today is I'm going to be fixing some trellis onto this piece of railing. Now, as the property is not my own, I can't actually screw into this, so I'm going to attach it with cable ties, and then we're going to be growing these plants up the fencing, and it'll just screen it and make it look a little bit more decorative than what we've got at the moment. So I've taken my measurements. I will double check them before I cut. So I have to go 4 centimetres past, come along to here, and there we are, 150 centimetres. So that's the measurements that I'm going to be running to here. But the reason I'm going 4 centimetres past here is so that the other piece of trellis that comes along the end can join on, and they can butt the two together. So I'm just going to go and make those cuts now. Well, I found a really good use for the barbecue. It gives me a level surface. I've measured up this trellis. Now I'm going to make a couple of cuts. I'm cutting it just too big because I never trust my cutting. I can always reduce in size, but I can't add a bit on. So just going to get the saw going. That's one bit done there. We'll have a little look and see if that's going to fit out the front now. I know it will. Okay, well, here we have the trellis already cut. So we're going to see now whether that's going to fit in there nicely. It looks like it's going to be a lovely job there. So all I'm going to do, just balance that, and I'm going to put one cable tie around the middle. And I'm not going to do this too tight either, because I want to be able to adjust it if necessary. So I'll just pop that around the middle there. And that's just going to hold that temporarily in place. We'll go and get the other measurements now. Right, so this first piece is basically in place. What I now need to do is take the measurement from the wall up to here so that we can measure properly. We'll get that exactly right. So I've got that reading 144. I'm going to then come down to the lower part and take a measurement there, which is also 144. Superb. So we've got squareness. So what I now need to do is go and measure the next piece of trellis, cut that so we can bring it in, then we can join them together to give ourselves a nice corner, and then I've got to cut a batten for the wall just to give it a little bit of extra support there. On we go with the cutting. I've now cut the second piece, measured it and cut it, and I'm just going to bring that up, and again I'm going to put loose cable tie on here before actually fixing the two pieces together. So fingers crossed. Bring that into position. That is going to be absolutely perfect. So where did I put the cable ties? There we go. So I'm just going to again bring one round the centre here. and lock that into position there. We're just going to centre these up, fix these with a couple of pins, and then put some more ties on there just to complete the job. And I'm going to be very, very happy with this. Then we can get our polyanthus moved out of here, a couple more hedging plants in, and I'm sure this is going to look absolutely fantastic. Well, there we go, all up nice and firm, and that's going to make quite an improvement to this area of the front garden. We've got some hedging going in here which is going to grow up there, and we've got the rows which we can actually train onto there as well. I'm sure it's going to look really, really nice, all for the sake of about £15, so I can't really argue with that. Cheers, my love.
Cheers.
Nice afternoon's work. You know, sometimes it's not about the work you're doing in the garden, it's about the work you've done. Sitting, enjoying, looking, listening, the birds flying around, the flowers coming out, the garden looking fantastic. And so, yes, every now and then it's really worth just sitting back and going, whoa, and chill. But I know there's a lot more to do, but I'll tell you what, that can wait until tomorrow. So, see you in the morning. Good morning. Well, it's a lovely sunny day again, and I've been out and bought myself a couple of these wall mounted planters. The back's nice and flat and they look like a watering can, and I'm going to be planting these up with some of my morning glories, some petunias, and I've got an ivy around somewhere in here, so I'm going to get on with planting those up now. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my morning glory. I'm going to put 2 into each one. I think that's going to be enough. So I'm just going to pop them out of the pot. Look at that, they've got a nice bit of root on there. That's lovely. So we're just going to pop that in here. Now again, the compost I've got inside here I've already watered. But once the plants are in here, I will be watering it again. And then we'll get enough room there for another one. Gently tease that out of the pot. Lovely. And pop that in that side there. Now that's 2 morning glory in there. It won't need a lot in these. It's going to give it some nice colour. Let's go over to the frame and get a tray of petunias out. There, this one looks okay, so we've got that there. Now all I'm going to do, get my stick, there we go, and I'm just going to lift a couple of these plants. There's one there, so we'll just make a nice bit of a hole towards the front on this one there, and pop that one into there. Give it a nice little thumb down with the fingers. Another little hole there. Get another reasonable size one out. Pop that little baby in there. I think this one we'll put 3 into. We'll put another one in the middle there. Pop that inside there. That's lovely. And we'll just put a little bit of water in there. And these will be ready to go up on the wall. I'm not concerned now about frost. I've had plants outside and they're all doing very, very nicely. So there we go, that's the first one. Now the second one I'm just going to do slightly differently, because I'm going to grab that ivy that I mentioned. And here we have nice little ivy. And I'm going to put this in the back of the pot, just into the back here. I like to have things looking slightly different. Oh, a little bit of soil falling off now. I'm just firm that down into the back there. And then we make some space for a couple of the morning glory. Another one here. And that can go just down in that side there. Oh, beautiful. Space in this side here as well. And we'll have another one in there. And in that goes, lovely. Nice and firm in there. And then it's got space in the front here for a couple of those small petunias. And again, we'll take the stick and we'll just lift one out of the pot there. And we'll put her in that side. Nice little firm in. And we'll just get another one in here. There's another one here. Straight in there. And again, we'll give that some water. And they'll be nice and decorative on the wall. We'll go and put those up in a second. And then I'll show you what it looks like. Well, there we go. 1, 2, installed on the wall. And we're going to keep those watered and fed, and hopefully they'll give us some lovely colour during the summer. Right, on with the next job. Well, the next job I've got to do today is to transplant some sweet pea seedlings. I've got quite a few. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 8 that are big enough to transplant into some 3-inch pots. So I've got them just here in a tray, and they are getting a little bit long and thin, so they need to get into pots and they need to be looked after. And so I've got my pots ready. I'm going to fill those with compost, and then we're going to transplant those seedlings over into pots now. So I've filled 8 little 3-inch pots with some compost. I'm just going to damp this down now to ensure that I've got a decent start for these plants as they go over. And they will be getting watered properly later on today, but this is just to dampen the compost down. Makes it a little bit easier to work with as well, especially in this very, very warm weather that we're having at the moment. I mean, in the greenhouse at the moment it's almost 40 degrees, which is very, very warm. So there we go, a little bit of water into those. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to lift some individual seedlings out of here. Got to see how much root we've got on there. Oh yes. Bring that up here. And look at that, that's lovely. Just make a nice little hole in the centre of the compost. Pop that in. Just down there. And bring the compost back round. And that is number 1. Well, now let's just make a little hole in here before we start on this one. And then we bring this one here out as well. Lovely lot of root on this one. Big long tap root there. Let's get that through. Look at that. Look at that. My word. Incredible long tap root. I'll pop that inside there. And firm that down inside. That's lovely. I'm just popping this back down because I've got some more little seedlings that are coming through in here. I don't really want to disturb those too much. But these need, the early developers shall we say, they need a little bit of a hand to keep going here. So I've just got to ease this out. Find that big root and then bring it along. There we go. And then get that down inside here. And these sweet peas are going to be, well, at least some of them, shall I say, are going to be going on that trellis that I put up earlier, and that will really give us a lovely, lovely scent. as we approach the front door. So looking forward to that. Here we go with another one. This one's going to have a big old root on it, I can sense that. And we just got to find out which way it's going. There it is. And bring that through. Wow, wow. Amazing little baby. And we pop that all inside there. And what I tend to do is I tend to plant them just to that first leaf. So they're just a little bit deeper in the ground. And these will be getting a little bit more compost just to dress them up as we go through. Just do one more in here. One of these slightly smaller ones. Still got a beautiful great big root on there. And we'll pop that in there. And these, once I've got them all sorted out, are going to come outside and go into the cold frame. So they're still going to be under cover, but they're not going to have all the protection of the greenhouse. So I'll carry on doing this, and then I'll show you that when it's all done. Well, there we are. 8 lovely sweet pea plants. I'm going to take these outside, put them in the cold frame now, get those growing until they're probably around about 30 centimetres high, and then I'll be putting those out into the garden. So happy days. We love our sweet peas. Beautiful scent and such lovely flowers. So happy to have these, and we've got about another 10 or 12 growing, which we'll be planting into the back garden as well. Lovely. Well, this morning I've been doing a couple of little jobs in the garden here, one of which was just to prune out a couple of bits on the forsythia. A great time for pruning some of your early flowering shrubs is when the flowers finish on the forsythia. That's a really good clue. I tend to do my roses when the plant flowers, and then my shrubs when the plant finishes flowering. And I've taken out the top on this just to encourage it to bush out a little bit more. And I've got a hydrangea down here, which I've also just cut back a bit. And I'll probably cut back a little bit more in about 3 or 4 weeks' time, just to tidy it up a little bit more. Whilst I'm in this section of the garden, I really want to show you something about the hellebores here. Now, these hellebore flowers are absolutely bursting now with seeds. And whilst I'm not going to save them all, I'm going to be saving some of them. And this is a pretty good pot. It's starting to go brown now inside. So what I tend to do is I get a small plastic bag, and I'm going to save those seeds. So I just pop the flower head inside the bag. And I just take a small piece of wool or string, tie it lightly in place. And as that dries out and the seeds fall into the bag, I can then collect those and use them for sowing and growing more plants. Well, hello again, and I'm back in the greenhouse, and I'd like to show you something that I haven't shown you before, but it's very, very important when you're working in your greenhouse. So let me show you this now. Well, this is my working area, and normally you'll see this covered in trays and compost and mess, but it's very, very important to keep your working area clean and tidy. So every day when I come down the greenhouse, the very first thing that I do is I clean it all off, and it gives me a nice working area to start the day. Now, as I've cleaned it off, I've got some bits and pieces now that I need to do, so I'm going to just prick out a couple of small tomato seedlings, pop those into some pots. Now, I've already taken quite a few seedlings out of here, and they're in pots up here already growing on nicely. but there's a few more now which are just slightly large enough to actually move into some 3-inch pots, so I'm going to do that now. Also, I've prepared 3 pots to take some tomato plant seedlings. My weapon of choice, always a little lolly stick or a marker, just to make a small hole in the bottom. I also use that just to lift the root of the plant out of the soil, and that comes up nicely in one lump there. I can just pop that in the middle. Now, as you're probably aware, it's been really difficult to get hold of compost over these past couple of months, but I was very fortunate to get hold of a couple of grow bags. So I'm using the grow bag content for the tomato seedlings, which is absolutely perfect because it also has some food inside that. Pop that one into there. And we've got another reasonable size one just here. So we'll just lift that out, pop that into there. As these other few seedlings just grow on over the next few days, then I'll be lifting these and doing exactly the same and putting them into 3-inch pots. So it's time to put this back onto the rack, and these ones will go out into the cold frame. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and I think I may have mentioned last week, I can't recall, I have some painting to do. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to bore you by asking you to watch paint dry, but it's this fence here that I need to start painting, and I've got this rather vicious rose here with very large thorns growing up against it, so I need to ease that forward. So what I've got is I've got my metal stake, and I've got some string, well, rope on here, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that into the ground reasonably deeply, just to hold nice and firm, and I'm going to run this round the back of the rose just to ease it away from the fence, because I do not fancy being speared by this beast whilst I'm actually painting the fence, and it's just a case of bringing it forward a couple of inches so as not to disturb the roots too much, and then we'll just lock the rope in place. A couple of half hitches on there, and that will hold that just far enough away so that I can get the brush in behind. I'll show you what I mean. So now the rose is far enough away that I can just gently ease it out. Only with a small brush. I'm just going to start a little bit just behind here before I actually paint the main fence. And it's important when you're getting your fence treatment paint, buy a reputable paint, one that you know is going to be around next year and the year after, so that you're able to at least get a similar sort of shade. So all I'm going to do now is just lean on here and start to apply the paint in the most difficult places, because then I can paint afterwards the rest of the fence. And I'm not even worried about the bottom bit here, it's just the pieces right behind where the rose is actually touching the fence. And I can give this then a chance to dry off before I release the rope. And I'll continue to work my way all the way around the back of the rose there, and we'll start to get our colour in place on the fence. So I think now I'll crack on with that for a few minutes, and then I think I'll sum up all the bits and pieces we've been through today, give you an idea of some of the bits and pieces that I'm going to be doing over the next 7 to 10 days, and I'll share some of the comments and bits and pieces that have come through to me over the last week or so. So let's pop off and do that now. Well, that's the first panel all painted up, and I think it's going to look so much better. I've just counted up though, I've got about 35 panels to paint, so I think I'd better go and buy some more of the wood preservative. So that's another little job. Well, it is that time when I must really thank you for being in touch. I love to hear about your successes and your trials as well. And to Agnes, you're possibly one of my oldest viewers in St. Retham. No, I know it's Streatham really, but yeah, if you live in a block of flats and you're growing stuff on your windowsill in your kitchen, fantastic. I really love to see some pictures of your successes as we go through, and with your permission I'd like to share them with other people. And talking of sharing pictures, here's one of my younger viewers. Well, hello Laura Louise. Laura Louise is one of our younger watchers, and she's growing a lovely little veg pack with some broccoli and some beetroot and some salad and some spring onions and various other bits and pieces. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcome of this wonderful vegetable garden. Well done, darling. Keep it up. Well, that's going to be a lesson to us all. We can all grow things in our gardens. We can grow things in our windows, in our window boxes. We can grow things anywhere. And it's one of the greatest joys is when I open the mails that I receive from you guys, and it is a blessing, and I thank you very much. So now it's time to sum up for today. Well, that brings me to the end of the 13th episode, and that is also just past a quarter of our year. I anticipate we'll have 50 episodes over the course of the year, so 12 and a quarter would have been the quarter of the way through, so 13 takes us through a quarter. I've thoroughly enjoyed putting today's episode together. We've done quite a lot of work in the garden, and I've also enjoyed just being in the garden. We've had some lovely weather during this lockdown, and it's just about to break. Over the next couple of days we're going to get some rain. That's going to save me a couple of hours a day watering the garden. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have, and thank you again for your lovely comments and joining me on this journey through a year in my garden. It just leaves me to say cheers, so I'd better grab a glass. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay well. Cheers, see you next time.